With Tenet coming out, let's talk about arguably Christopher Nolan's finest film. Yes, I'm talking Inception. Hey guys, how are you doing today? It's P.E. Gilbert, your blogger, writing consultant, and the author to the fantasy novella The Sultan's Daughter. And today we shall be reviewing Inception to see what we can learn from it. But before we go any further with today's content, hit that subscribe button. Inception is one of the best films ever, and I mean ever. I saw Inception in the cinema a decade ago, and every time I've seen it, I've enjoyed it more. Its plot, while demanding a lot of the audience's attention, is not that difficult to understand. IMDb explains it as follows. Dom Cobb is a skilled thief, the absolute best in the dangerous art of extraction, stealing valuable secrets from deep within the subconscious during the dream state when the mind is at its most vulnerable. Cobb's rare ability has made him a coveted player in this treacherous new world of corporate espionage, but it has also made him an international fugitive and cost him everything he has ever loved. Now Cobb is being offered a chance at redemption. One last job could give him his life back, but only if he can accomplish the impossible. Inception. Instead of the perfect heist, Cobb and his team of specialists have to pull off the reverse. Their task is not to steal an idea, but to plant one. If they succeed, it could be the perfect crime. But no amount of careful planning or expertise can prepare the team for the dangerous enemy that seems to predict their every move. An enemy that only Cobb could have seen coming. To summarise and simplify that, Dom Cobb, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, must implant an idea into the mind of Robert Fisher, played by Cillian Murphy, to dissolve his father's business empire so that Saito, played by Ken Watanabe, can have a greater share in the marketplace. In return for this, Saito promises Cobb that he will get the charges against him dropped so that he can go back to his family. There, that wasn't so difficult now, was it? And now that we have simplified this complex sci-fi film of unusual corporate espionage, it's time to review the film. Oh, and by the way, there will be spoilers in this review, but if you haven't seen Inception now after 10 years, where have you been? Is it any good, and why? Yeah, Inception isn't just good, it's a masterpiece. Inception is extraordinarily intelligent, fast-paced and gripping. More than anything, what makes the film work are its characters. While the settings, the music and the special effects are all outstanding without question, it is the characters that keep us engaged. Each and every one of these characters are interesting enough to have their own film. Let's start with the main character, Dom Cobb. Cobb is as sharp in the mind as he is in the suit and has the Christopher Nolan side parting to go with it, as a certain YouTuber has tried to mimic. When Cobb says at the start of the film that he is the best in the business at what he does, he's being truthful. He was once a brilliant architect for the dream world. Yet, as we discussed in our video on how to create the ultimate main character, it is not the strengths that make the main character fascinating, but rather his weaknesses, his flaw, and/or his internal conflict. And boy does Cobb have some serious issues, both externally with the law and internally within himself. From the opening scene of the film, we get a hint of what is to come for Cobb. He is lying on the shore with the waves lapping over him as he stares at his children with a twinkle of longing or desperation in his eyes. As the film goes on, we learn that Cobb not only yearns to return home to be a father again to his two children, but that he has yet to get over the death of his ex-wife, Mal, played by Marion Cotillard, who we shall look at later in this video. The reason he cannot go home is because 1 and 2 are linked. He has been accused wrongly of killing his ex-wife. Now, there may be little doubt in the audience's mind that Cobb did not kill his ex-wife. He just doesn't seem the sort of person to do that. But what is interesting is that Cobb blames himself for her death. He is racked by guilt and voluntarily and often goes into the dream world so that he can be with her again. All of this makes for terrific character depth, as Cobb is viscerally struggling to live with himself. But what is more impressive from a narrative perspective is that Cobb's inner demons affect him in a negative way. They affect his ability to make decisions, and they affect his subconscious, which, for a film about dreams, is vitally significant. Cobb, however, has seemingly never discussed his issues or his guilt with any member of his team, and he flat out denies it whenever anyone asks him if he is alright. That is until Ariadne joins the team. Of all the secondary characters, It is Ariadne, played by Paige, that has the greatest impact on Cobb. She plays a graduate student of architecture who is recruited to construct the various dreamscapes, which are described as mazes. Her name comes from the Greek myth, who helped Theseus navigate his way out of a prison-like labyrinth called Minotaur. Ariadne is a fresh-faced, intelligent, savvy young lady who acts as a conduit between the plot and the audience. As she hears new information, so too do the audience, and astonishingly, the questions she asks are more often than not what the audience is thinking, or at least that was the case for me. Nevertheless, her real importance to the story is how she influences Cobb, as she suspects that he is not telling the whole truth, which he's not, and that becomes abundantly clear in the third act. She invades his dreams and learns the truth about how damaged, flawed, and internally conflicted he is. Then she helps him by making him aware as to what he has to do to forgive himself. This is her true role in the film. The other character of note who influences Cobb's decision-making process and the plot vicariously is his ex-wife Mal, played by Marion Cotillard. What I find most fascinating about Mal's character is that we seldom see her as the person she was, and when we do, it's only after she went mad. Rather, we see her as a projection of Cobb's internal struggles. She is destroying his life from within, and as we delve into the different subconsciouses, we see how her destroying him on the inside undermines the task of Inception on the outside. This, I thought, was really clever, as one of the best elements of art is to give physical representation to abstract emotions. Inception does this with a brilliant, seldom seen. The other secondary characters may not have the same impact on Cobb as a character, but they all play their part and they all do it really well. Arthur, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, is Cobb's long-term colleague. He is very intelligent and knows how to improvise when necessary. Eves, played by Tom Hardy, is a forger, a skilled fighter, and he adds acerbic humour to the narrative, especially in relation to Arthur.
Arthur, you're still working with that stick in the mud. He's good at what he does, right? Your condescension, as always, is much appreciated, Arthur. Thank you.
This gives us the impression that they have worked together before and have gotten on each other's nerves. Sato, played by Ken Watanabe, is the one who gets Cobb going on his mission because he wants something and is willing to give Cobb something back in return. Sato goes into the dreams with Cobb and his team to make sure that Cobb gets the job done, and Nolan cleverly links this to the plot by making Sato suffer a fatal injury that could undermine the entire task. Plus, this injury links the end with the opening scene in the most genius way. And lastly, there's Robert Fisher, played by Cillian Murphy, who is the one who the team needs to plant the idea of Inception into. What's really smart is that the team plays on his complicated relationship with his father, which adds a layer of depth to his character. This makes him multifaceted and human, if a little bit gullible and naive. Then again, there's probably a reason why his father does not leave him his business empire as well. The settings, the visuals, and the special effects. In a word, they are stylish. Christopher Nolan has often spoken about his love for James Bond films, and we see the Bond-esque style in the opening scenes when Cobb is speaking with Sato in the hilltop Minka. That is just one of the many stylish places that we see in the film, and these settings vary considerably. From a central Parisian cafe, to a glass-fronted five-star hotel in LA, to a snowy mountain fortress in Alberta, Canada, to name but three. The scenes in Mumbai, the workshops, and the warehouses may lack the glamour of some of the other locations, but if they were all on the same par, the stylish ones wouldn't look as stylish. It is also worth discussing the visual effects in Inception. Wally Pfister, Christopher Nolan's former longtime collaborator and cinematographer, won the Oscar for Best Cinematography for Inception. He probably won it for this scene in Paris when the street goes vertical, as it is innovative and was done so well. In addition, Christopher Nolan is well known for using special effects to enhance physical models rather than solely relying on a background screen. This gives the visuals more energy and a sense of realism. Moreover, his use of physical models and or the real thing is why the film has aged so well, especially when comparing it to other films that were made around the same time as Inception that relied significantly more on special effects, such as Transformers: Dark of the Moon, Alice in Wonderland, and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. The music. In a word, it is outstanding. The music varies from the subtle to the overbearing, depending upon the scene and the time in the film. In general though, the closer we are to the climax, the more overbearing the music is, and in a good way. The track Dream is Collapsing underlines this. I don't know about how you feel when you listen to it, but when I listen to it, I feel like the world around me is crumbling and that the pressure is on. I feel like everything I have worked for is falling apart and that I am in some kind of crisis resembling a nightmare. The music is unbearable here, and it cranks up the tension for the climactic scenes exponentially in a brilliant fashion. And yet this track, Dream is Collapsing, can be compared to its inverted opposite, Time, which gives us a feeling of completion that is equally overpowering in a very different way. Bottom line, that the music makes us feel such emotions is extraordinary. How Hans Zimmer did not win the Oscar that year is completely beyond me, especially as it was won by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross for The Social Network. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against them and their score was really good, but it was not on the same level as that of Inception. The pacing and the editing. Unlike for the music category, Inception did win the Oscar for editing, and it is no surprise at all that it did. The sharp nature of the cuts helped to keep the pace of the film fast, and the pace seems to increase as we near the climax of the film as the situation becomes more desperate for the protagonists. Nevertheless, the constant cutting of the scenes works, and it does not make the audience feel like they're going to get a migraine anytime soon. As opposed to the fight scene between Oberyn Martell and the Mountain in Game of Thrones, which was edited to within an inch of its life. The editing in Inception works a treat. They ramp up the tension in an organic way, and they enhance the movie. The ending. Few films have an ending that people vociferously debate 10 years later. Is Cobb in the real world at the end, or is he lost in limbo in his own subconscious? If you ask me, he is in the real world for two reasons. One, the totem wobbles when it spins, which it did not in the dream. And two, Michael Caine said in 2018, "When I got the script of Inception, I was a bit puzzled by it. I said to Christopher Nolan, I don't understand where the dream is. When is it the dream and when is it reality? Well, Christopher Nolan responded, when you're in the scene, it's reality. So get that. If I'm in it, it's reality. If I'm not in it, it's a dream." So take from that what you will. However, what is absolutely mind-boggling about the ending for Inception is that whichever side of the debate you fall on, either work. If Cobb is in the real world, he has come to terms with himself, he is at peace internally, and he has solved his legal problems too, meaning that he can be a father again. And if he is dreaming, then again he has come to terms with himself and he is no longer bothered by his former demons. Either way, he is at peace with himself, and that is why Inception is such an extraordinary film. All that unusual sci-fi espionage stuff, that is just a means for Cobb to achieve his ends. At its heart, Inception is about a man learning to come to terms with his mistakes, to forgive himself. And Cobb does that in the end. In the end, Cobb has achieved all that he has set out to do, and his story arc is complete. As for the ending itself, that is just a clever trick by Christopher Nolan to make us pay to watch the film again. And it worked. What we can learn from Inception? Well, for one, that Christopher Nolan is a genius. Two, that you can make a blockbuster with a complex narrative and multi-dimensional characters that can appeal to the masses and, most importantly of all, rake in a ton of money. At the box office, Inception took in $829.9 million on a $160 million budget and was the fourth highest grossing film of 2010. It baffles me that so many filmmakers of big blockbuster movies spend so much time and money on their special effects, but relatively little of both on their scripts and on their characters. The narrative and making the audience feel like they have been on a journey through the characters is what matters most when making a story, and Inception does this extraordinarily well. Indeed, with Inception, Christopher Nolan has shown us that you don't need to patronise your audience, that you don't need to stoop to the lowest common denominator and dumb down the content. He has demonstrated that we, the audience, do enjoy watching a complex plot that challenges us intellectually whilst being taken on a character-driven journey that has a satisfying conclusion. And that's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed this review of Inception. Like, comment, and hit that subscribe button so that you will be the first to receive more upcoming movie reviews, including another of Christopher Nolan's classic films in the form of Batman Begins. Moreover, my debut fantasy novella, The Sultan's Daughter, is out. I have left a link in the description below. If you like to read books that are short, fast-paced, and full of suspense, check it out. Otherwise, until next time, keep well. Once again, guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching my video. I really appreciate it, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button, and then you will be the first to receive more awesome content from my channel, and I hope to see you again soon.